That night, I understood that a wedding could actually destroy two families. My name is Frida Jackson, and I'm 55 years old. I'm a mother of three, but this story is about my oldest son, Toto. The day of his wedding should have been the happiest day of his life. It wasn't. I still remember the scent of leaves in the church, the white lights hanging from the ceiling, the guests smiling. Today waited at the altar in that navy blue suit he loved so much. He was nervous, but happy. I was happy too until the moment came for the toast. The bride's father, Mr. Humphrey Sterling, took the microphone. He was a hefty man with a deep voice, the owner of a major construction company. Everyone knew him. Everyone respected him, or so they thought. He raised his champagne flute and said, "I want to toast my daughter Sophia. She's always been stubborn, even as a kid. And today she insisted on marrying this young man." There were nervous laughs. Then he added, looking directly at Tito, "That boy is an idiot." The room erupted in laughter, but I saw my son's face. He turned pale, his hands trembled, and he lowered his gaze. I felt my own legs give out from under me. No one else seemed to notice. Everyone was laughing. Everyone was toasting as if humiliating a man at his own wedding was funny. I clenched my napkin in my hands, took a deep breath, and knew something right then and there. This man wasn't going to get away with it because I knew things. Things he thought nobody knew. And that night, I was going to reveal everything. But before I tell you what I did, let me tell you how I got there. Because this story didn't start at that wedding. It started months earlier when something inside me told me, "Frida, investigate that man." And I did. What I discovered destroyed his entire family. When Toto told me he'd met a girl, I was thrilled. It was January and it was freezing outside. We were in my kitchen drinking spiced coffee like we did every afternoon. "Mom, her name is Sophia," he told me with that shy smile he'd had since he was a boy. "She's different. She's smart, and she makes me laugh." I watched him. Today was 28. He worked as a civil engineer at a small but honest firm. He was my oldest son, the most serious, the most responsible. He had never talked to me about a girl like that before. "And what does she do?" I asked, stirring my coffee. "She's studying architecture. She's about to finish her degree. Her dad owns a big construction firm, Sterling and Associates." That's when something inside me shifted. Sterling? The last name sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it. "Have you gotten to know her well?" I asked. "Yeah, Mom. We've been seeing each other for 3 months. I want you to meet her. Can I bring her over for dinner Sunday?" I agreed, of course, because a mother always wants to see her children happy. And Toto looked happy. That Sunday, Sophia arrived. She was pretty, long, dark hair, big eyes. She dressed simply, but with class. She greeted me respectfully and hugged me. "Mrs. Jackson," she said in a soft voice, "thank you so much for having me over." I prepared chicken and rice, my specialty. Today I was nervous, but Sophia helped set the table. We talked. She told me about her career, about her dreams. She wanted to design sustainable, affordable houses for families. I liked her, but when she mentioned her father, something shifted in her voice. "My dad is demanding," she said, moving the food around on her plate. "He's always wanted me to be perfect, to get the best grades, to marry someone on his level." "And what does he think of?" I asked, pouring her more water. Sophia looked down. "I haven't told him we're dating yet." She gave her a surprised look. "Sophia, come on." "It's just," she sighed. "My dad is complicated. He always says men have to prove their worth. That he doesn't trust anyone who doesn't come from a family with money." I felt a knot in my stomach. "To comes from an honest family," I said firmly. "Hardworking with values that's worth more than any money." Sophia looked at me with teary eyes. "I know, Mrs. Jackson. That's why I love him." Tito took her hand. I smiled, but inside something was unsettling me. That man, Humphrey Sterling, sounded like someone difficult, someone who judged people by their bank account. And I knew that type of man. I had seen them all my life. They always hide something. Months passed. To Sophia became an official couple. He was in love, radiant, coming home singing. He talked about her all the time. Mom, Sophia understands me. She respects me. She doesn't care that I don't have a new car or that I live in a rented apartment. She says the important thing is building something together. I nodded, but kept thinking about her father. One day, Tito came home looking serious. Mom, I have to tell you something. We sat in the living room. It was raining outside. The sound of water against the window calmed me. I'm going to propose to Sophia. I felt a mixture of joy and fear. Have you met his family yet? Yes. I went to their house for dinner 2 weeks ago. And how did it go? Tita hesitated. Her dad, Mr. Sterling, is odd. Mom, he asked me a lot of questions about my job, my salary, my plans. He asked how much I made a month, how much I had saved, and if I owned property. And what did you tell him? The truth? That I earn enough? That I'm saving? That I don't own a house yet, but I work hard. And what did he say? Tita clenched his fists. He said, well, son, I hope you know my daughter is accustomed to a certain standard of living. Not just anyone can support her. I felt anger, but I held it in. And Sophia, what did she say? She got mad at him. She told him I was a good man, and that was the only thing that mattered. Mr. Sterling just laughed and said, we'll see about that. I couldn't sleep that night. Something about that man bothered me deeply. It wasn't just his arrogance. It was something more, something I couldn't see yet, but I was going to find out. To propose to Sophia in April, she said yes. They cried together. He called me excited. Mom, she said yes. We're getting married. I was truly happy. But that same night, alone in my room, I looked out the window and thought, that man is going to try to ruin this. I know it. And I was right. 2 weeks later, Sophia came to see me. She was crying. Mrs. Jackson, my dad says he doesn't want me to marry you. I sat down with her, served her chamomile tea, and held her hands. Why? He says Tu has no future, that he's mediocre, that he'll make me unhappy, that I'll regret it. And what do you think? I love Toto, but my dad is so stubborn and my mom always does what he says. I'm afraid they won't stand by me. I squeezed her hands. Sophia, listen to me closely. True love doesn't surrender to fear. If you love my son, fight for him. And if your father doesn't accept it, that's his problem, not yours. She nodded, wiping her tears. You're right. I'm going to fight. And she did. Sophia confronted her father. She told him she was going to marry him with or without his blessing. Mr. Sterling had no choice but to accept, but I knew a man like that never accepts defeat. And I was right. The wedding preparations began. Today was happy. Sophia was too. But Mr. Sterling, he imposed conditions. I want the wedding to be at the country club event hall. He told Sophia. I'll pay for everything, but it's going to be done my way. Ta wasn't comfortable with that. Mom, I want to pay my part. I don't like depending on him. I know, son, but sometimes you have to compromise for Sophia. And he compromised. But I didn't compromise because something inside me was saying that man was hiding something big, something dark. And one afternoon while I was having coffee at a cafe downtown, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. I saw Humphrey Sterling with another woman and 2 small children. The woman kissed him on the mouth. The children called him Dad. I froze. I paid my check, left there, walked to my car, sat down, took a breath, and then I knew what I had to do. I was going to investigate that man because if he was deceiving his wife, his family, and everyone, then my son was about to enter a family built on lies, and I wasn't going to allow it. For 3 days, I couldn't sleep well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same scene. Mr. Sterling kissing that woman, the children holding his hand, the way she looked at him as if he were her whole world. And then I thought about Mr. Sterling's wife, Mrs. Eleanor Sterling. I had met her only twice at the engagement dinners. She was an elegant, quiet woman, always with a polite but sad smile, as if she had been carrying an invisible burden for years. Now I understood why, but I needed to be sure. I needed proof because accusing a man like Humphrey Sterling without evidence would destroy my son's wedding, and I didn't want that. I just wanted to protect him. So, I did something I never thought I would. I hired a private investigator. His name was Roy Mendes. A friend whose husband had cheated years ago recommended him to me. He was discreet, professional. He had a small office in an old building, a second-floor walk-up above a dry cleaner. I climbed the stairs one Tuesday afternoon. The hallway smelled of detergent and old coffee. I knocked on the door. A deep voice said, "Come in." I entered. Roy was a man in his 50s, thin with glasses and a short-sleeved shirt. He had an old computer on his desk and metal filing cabinets against the wall. "Have a seat, ma'am. How can I help you?" I sat down, took a deep breath, and told him everything. I told him my son was getting married, that the bride's father was a powerful, arrogant man, that I had seen him with another woman and 2 children, and that I needed to know the truth. Roy took notes. He didn't judge me. He didn't ask unnecessary questions. "Do you have a picture of the gentleman?" I showed him a photo I had found online. Mr. Sterling at a groundbreaking ceremony with his politician smile. "Do you know where you saw him with the other woman?" "At a cafe downtown near the main square. It's called the Southern Star." "Do you remember the day and time?" "Last Friday around 4 o'clock in the afternoon." Roy nodded. "I need a week. I'm going to follow him. I'll find out everything I can. If he has another family, I'll prove it. If there's more, that too, ma'am." A man who cheats so openly usually has more secrets. Financial problems, debts, shady business dealings. "I'll check everything." I felt a chill. "How much do you charge?" $5,000 a week plus expenses. It wasn't cheap, but I paid it because my son's peace of mind was priceless. That week was one of the hardest of my life. He came home every day excited about the wedding plans. He showed me photos of the venue, the menu, the flowers. Sophia and he had chosen white roses. Their song would be a classic jazz standard. "Mom, are we going to dance to that song together?" "Yes, you and I. Like when you were little." I smiled, nodded, but inside I was dying of anxiety. What if what Roy discovered destroyed everything? What if Sophia suffered because of her father? What if Tito hated me for interfering? But then I remembered that phrase. That phrase Mr. Sterling had said to my son, "I hope you know my daughter is accustomed to a certain standard of living. Not just anyone can support her." And my anxiety turned to rage. That man had humiliated Toto from the start. He had treated him like he was less than, as if he didn't deserve Sophia. Well, if I was going to uncover something, it wasn't going to be to destroy the wedding. It was going to be to protect my son from a family of lies. On Friday of that week, Roy called me. "Mrs. Jackson, I need you to come to my office." "I have information." I arrived in less than an hour. I climbed the stairs, almost running. I walked in without knocking. Roy was sitting in front of his computer. He looked at me seriously. "Have a seat." I sat down. My hands were shaking. "What did you find?" Roy turned the screen toward me. "Mr. Humphrey Sterling has 2 families." I felt the air escape my chest. On the screen were photos. Photos of Mr. Sterling with that woman entering an apartment building in a middle-class neighborhood, taking the children to school, kissing her in a supermarket parking lot. "Who is she?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Her name is Veronica Campos. She's 32, an accountant, and she works at Mr. Sterling's company, Sterling and Associates. And the children are his, a 7-year-old boy and a 5-year-old girl. They're registered with the mother's last name." But I investigated. Mr. Sterling pays the apartment rent, pays for the children's private school, buys them clothes, toys, everything. With what money? Roy looked at me intently. "With company money." I felt the world stop. "What?" Roy took out a folder and opened it. Inside were documents, bank statements, wire transfers. Mr. Sterling has been diverting money from the company for years. He makes transfers to personal accounts. He uses corporate cards for personal expenses. He pays for trips, hotels, expensive restaurants, all with money from Sterling and Associates. And the company Roy, it's in serious trouble. It has debts to suppliers, labor lawsuits, 3 unfinished projects, and there are 2 criminal complaints against him for fraud. I put my hands to my face. "Oh my God." "That's not all," Roy said. "What else?" "Mr. Sterling has personal debts, 2 maxed-out credit cards, a Bank loan for over $2 million, and he owes taxes to the IRS from 3 years ago. How much does he owe in total? Roy checked his notes. Approximately $12 million. The company's on the verge of bankruptcy. It has 6 months, maybe a year after that total collapse. I sat in silence looking at those documents, those photos, that dark truth. Humphrey Sterling was not the successful man everyone thought. He was a liar, a thief, a fraud, and my son was about to marry his daughter. Roy handed me copies of everything. Photos, documents, transfer receipts, expense records. It was all there. "What are you going to do with this?" he asked me. "I don't know," I replied, my voice broken. "I need to think." "Ma'am, I'm going to tell you something. You hired me to find the truth, and the truth is ugly, but now that you have it, you have to decide what to do with it." "I know. If I tell my son before the wedding, maybe he'll cancel everything. And maybe that's for the best, but it could also destroy his relationship with Sophia." "I know. If you don't say anything, your son is going to enter a corrupt family, and when everything explodes, because it will explode, he'll be caught in the middle." I closed my eyes. "And if I tell Mr. Sterling," Roy shook his head. "A man like that won't accept that he's been discovered. He'll deny everything. He'll threaten you. He'll try to destroy you. So, what do I do?" Roy leaned back in his chair. "Wait, observe. And when the right moment comes, act." I left that office with a folder full of secrets. I walked aimlessly through the downtown streets. The sun was setting behind the buildings. The lights of the food vendors were turning on. People walked quickly, rushing to get home. I walked slowly, carrying a burden I didn't know how to let go of. I thought of Tito, his smile, his excitement. I thought of Sophia, her innocence. It wasn't her fault she had a father like that. I thought of Mrs. Sterling, her silent sadness. Maybe she knew. Maybe she had been quiet for years. And I thought of Humphrey Sterling, his arrogance, his hypocrisy, his cruelty. And I decided something. I wasn't going to say anything before the wedding. I was going to wait. I was going to observe. And if Mr. Sterling dared to humiliate my son again, then I was going to destroy him with the truth. I got home after dark. I put the folder at the bottom of my closet beneath some old blankets. I sat on my bed, looked out the window. The city lights flickered like distant stars, and took a deep breath because I knew what was coming was going to change everything. The following weeks were a silent torture. Every time I saw Toto, I smiled. Every time Sophia came to visit, I hugged her. Every time someone mentioned the wedding, I nodded enthusiastically. But inside, I carried that secret like a stone in my chest. I slept poorly, ate little. I woke up in the early hours and sat in the kitchen looking at that folder I had hidden in my closet. Sometimes I took it out, reviewed the photos, the documents, the bank transfers. Everything was there. Every lie, every betrayal. And I wondered, why don't I say anything? But the answer was always the same. Because if I did it now, Tito would hate me. He would think I was sabotaging his happiness. And Sophia would be devastated. No, I had to wait for the right moment. And that moment would come. One Saturday morning, Sophia called me. "Mrs. Jackson, can we meet? I need to talk to you." "Of course, honey." "What happened?" "It's about my dad. I'd rather tell you in person." We agreed to meet at a cafe near my house. I arrived before her and ordered an Americano. I sat by the window. When Sophia arrived, her eyes were red. She had been crying. She sat across from me, took a deep breath, and said, "My dad wants to control everything about the wedding." "What do you mean?" "He wants to choose the guest list. He wants only important people to go. He says he doesn't want common people at his event." I felt the anger rise in my throat. "Common people?" Sophia nodded, wiping her tears with a napkin. "I told him I wanted to invite Tito's cousins, his aunts and uncles, his friends from college, and my dad said, 'No, Sophia. This wedding is a social event, not a block party.'" I gripped my coffee cup so hard I thought it would break. "And what does your mom say?" "Nothing. My mom never says anything. She always does what he says. Exactly as I had imagined." "Sophia, listen to me," I said, taking her hands. "This wedding is yours and not your father's. If he wants to control everything, then maybe you should get married another way. She shook her head. I can't. My dad threatened not to pay for anything. If I don't do things his way, and I don't have the money to have a wedding like this, it would take us years to save up. Then do it small with the people you truly love, with dignity. Sophia looked at me with those sad eyes, so much like her mother's. Mrs. Jackson, I just want my dad to be proud of me just once. But no matter what I do, it's never enough for him. My heart broke because I understood something. Sophia wasn't just trapped by money. She was trapped by the love she never received from her father, and that was worse than any debt. That afternoon, when I returned home, I took out the folder again. I looked at the photos of Mr. Sterling with that other woman, with those children Sophia didn't even know existed, and I thought, that man doesn't deserve his daughter's love. But I still couldn't tell her because destroying the image Sophia had of her father before the wedding would be cruel. She needed hope. There would be time for the truth later. 2 weeks before the wedding, there was a rehearsal dinner at the Sterling's house. He invited me. I didn't want to go, but he insisted. Mom, please. I want you to get to know Sophia's family better. Mr. Sterling said he wants to talk to you. That made me nervous, but I accepted. The Sterling's house was in a wealthy neighborhood. It was huge. 3 stories, a garden with a fountain, a 4-car garage. When I arrived, a staff member opened the door. Good evening, ma'am. Please come in. I entered. The floor was marble. The walls had enormous paintings. Everything smelled like money. But I knew the truth. All of it was built on lies. Mrs. Sterling greeted me in the living room. She was an elegant woman, about 55, with perfectly styled hair and a beige dress. Mrs. Jackson, how lovely to see you. Please come in. She greeted me with a kiss on the cheek. Her perfume was expensive, but her gaze was empty. Thank you for the invitation, I said. It's a pleasure. Sophia speaks highly of you. We sat down. There were appetizers, red wine, imported cheeses, everything served by staff who moved in silence. Tu was sitting next to Sophia, holding her hand. She was smiling, but looked tense. And then Mr. Sterling appeared. He walked in with the same old arrogance. Dark suit, gold watch, salesman's smile. Mrs. Jackson, how nice to have you in our home. I stood up. He extended his hand, and I shook it firmly. Thank you for having me. Sit down. Sit down. We'll have dinner in a few minutes. But first, I want to make a toast. Mr. Sterling took a glass of wine. We all followed suit. I want to toast my daughter Sophia, he said, looking at her. She has always been my pride and joy, smart, beautiful, well-educated, and now she's about to get married. He paused. He looked at Toto. To a hard-working, humble young man from a good family. The word humble sounded like an insult. To lowered his gaze. I clenched my glass. Mr. Sterling continued, I hope this marriage is the beginning of something great. Because in this family, we value effort, hard work, ambition. He looked me straight in the eye. Don't you agree, Mrs. Jackson? I held his gaze. I believe the most valuable thing in this life is honesty. There was an awkward silence. Mr. Sterling smiled, but his eyes turned cold. Of course, honesty. How important. We toasted. But I knew I had just thrown down a warning, and he knew it too. During dinner, Mr. Sterling talked nonstop about his businesses, his contacts, the projects he had built, and the politicians he knew. I have a new project, he said, cutting his steak. A residential development in Houston, 500 houses. It's going to be my biggest venture yet. Mrs. Sterling smiled faintly. That's wonderful, dear. But I thought, with what money? If you're broke. To listened attentively. Sophia ate in silence. And I just watched. I watched how easily Mr. Sterling lied. How his wife pretended everything was fine. How Sophia swallowed her sadness with every bite. That entire family lived a lie. And I was about to destroy it. But not yet. Not yet. At the end of dinner, Mr. Sterling asked to speak to me alone. Mrs. Jackson, would you accompany me to my study? I nodded. I followed him down a long hallway to a room with wood shelves, books he had never read, and an enormous desk. He closed the door. Have a seat. I sat down. He remained standing, looking down at me. I want to talk to you about listening. He's a good boy, hardworking, respectful, but he paused. But he has no future. I felt my blood boil. Excuse me. He has no future, he repeated. He earns little. He doesn't own property. He doesn't have big ambitions. And my daughter deserves more. I stood up. My son has something you will never understand. He has values. He has dignity. He is true love. Mr. Sterling laughed. Love doesn't pay the bills, Mrs. Jackson. No, but honesty brings peace. He moved closer to me. His voice turned cold. Look, I'll be clear. I paid for this wedding. I pay for everything. And when they get married, Sophia is going to keep depending on me because your son can't support her. So, you better understand who's in charge here. I stared at him. I understand perfectly who thinks they're in charge. I left that study without saying anything else. I walked down the stairs to Sami and approached. Mom, are you okay? Yes, son. Just tired. Let's go. We said our goodbyes. We got in the car. Toto drove in silence. When we arrived at my house, he said, Mom, I know Mr. Sterling is difficult, but I'm doing this for Sophia. She's worth it. I hugged him. I know, son. I know. But inside, I was thinking, Humphrey Sterling, your time has come. Just wait for the wedding day. As I tell all this, I wonder where you are listening to me. Have you also met someone like that? Someone who uses money to control, who humiliates in the name of success. Write the name of your city in the comments. I want to know where you are listening to me. The week before the wedding was chaos. To barely slept. He had to finish a project at work and at the same time sort out the last details of the ceremony. I saw him exhausted, stressed, but happy. Mom, I'm getting married in a week, he would tell me with that smile that melted my heart. I can't believe it. I made him coffee, ironed his shirt for the suit fitting, and went with him to buy the rings. And all the while, I carried that secret that weighed more heavily every day. But something was changing inside me. It was no longer just rage against Mr. Sterling. It was a need for justice. Because the more I saw him act, the more I realized that this man wasn't just deceiving his family, he was deceiving everyone. And worse, he enjoyed doing it. On Tuesday of that week, I received an unexpected call. It was Roy, the investigator. Mrs. Jackson, I need to see you. I found something else. What did you find? I'd rather tell you in person. Can you come to my office this afternoon? I went. I climbed those same stairs I knew so well. The smell of detergent and old coffee was still there. Roy was waiting for me with another folder. Have a seat, he said in a serious voice. I sat down, my hands trembling. What is it? Roy opened the folder, taking out new documents. I investigated the finances of Sterling and Associates more thoroughly, and I found something serious. What? Mr. Sterling is not only diverting money for his other family, he's also involved in construction fraud. I gasped. What kind of fraud? 2 years ago, he won a bid to build a housing complex in the state of Georgia, 120 affordable homes. The government gave him a down payment of $25 million, and he only built 40 houses. The other 80 were never finished. He kept the money. He claimed there were problems with suppliers, that material costs went up, that there were delays, but it was all a lie. My God, there are families who paid a down payment, who waited years and never got their house. Now there's a class action lawsuit against him and an investigation by the Anti-Corruption Bureau. I felt the floor moving beneath my feet. When is that going to blow up? Roy checked his notes. According to my sources, the Bureau is going to issue an arrest warrant in the next 3 months, maybe sooner. 3 months? Yes. Mr. Sterling is living his final days of freedom. I remained silent, Roy continued. And there's more. The company is technically bankrupt. Employees haven't been paid their full salary in 2 months. Machinery has been repossessed. 3 projects have stalled. And the bank has already started collection proceedings for the loan I mentioned. And Mr. Sterling keeps spending like nothing's wrong. Exactly. Last week he bought a new car, a BMW. He paid for it in cash. Where did he get that money? Roy looked at me intently. Probably from the company till or some hidden account. This man is an expert at hiding money. I closed my eyes. And his wife, Mrs. Sterling, does she know anything about this? I don't know, but I doubt it. She comes from a traditional conservative family. If she knew her husband had another family, she probably would have divorced him or at least confronted him. But there are no signs of that. So she lives deceived like many wives of men like that. I sighed. What else did you find? Roy took out more photos. He had been following Mr. Sterling all week. He goes to Veronica's apartment 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. He arrives around 7 o'clock in the evening and stays until 11 o'clock, sometimes later, and his wife doesn't suspect anything. He tells her he has meetings, business dinners, client gatherings, and she believes him or pretends to. I looked at the photos, Mr. Sterling entering the building, kissing Veronica on the balcony, playing with the children at the park, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time, disgust. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, sitting on my bed, looking out the window. Outside, the city slept. The lights of the buildings flickered. The silence was profound. And I thought about his excitement, his love for Sophia. I thought about Sophia, her innocence, how desperately she sought the love of a father who didn't deserve it. I thought about Mrs. Sterling, her silence, her sadness. I thought about those children, Mr. Sterling's secret children growing up without a present father living in the shadows. And I thought about all those families who lost their savings, who waited years for a house that never came, who trusted a man who stole from them. And I understood something. This was no longer just about protecting my son. It was about doing justice. Humphrey Sterling had built his life on lies. He had trampled everyone in his path. He had used money, power, and arrogance to get away with it, and no one had stopped him until now. On Thursday afternoon, 2 days before the wedding, I went to visit a friend. Her name was Teresa. I had known her for 20 years. She was a lawyer specializing in family law. We sat in her office. I told her everything. I showed her the folders, the documents, the photos. Teresa reviewed everything carefully. She didn't say anything for several minutes. Finally, she looked up. Frida, this is explosive. I know. If you make this public, you're going to destroy that family. I know. Are you sure you want to do it? I remained silent. Teresa continued, Look, I understand you want to protect your son, but think about Sophia. It's not her fault she has a father like that. If you reveal this on the wedding day, you're going to ruin the most important day of her life. And if I don't say anything, I replied, what if I let to enter that family of lies? And what if Mr. Sterling keeps humiliating him? What if he uses him? What if he destroys his self-esteem? Teresa sighed. It's a difficult decision. No, it's not anymore. What do you mean? I looked at her fixedly. Mr. Sterling challenged me. He told me he was in charge, that my son wasn't enough, and he planned to humiliate him at his own wedding. How do you know that? I know. I know him. Men like him can't help it. They always need to demonstrate their power. Teresa nodded. And what are you going to do? I'm going to wait. I'm going to go to that wedding. And if Mr. Sterling dares to humiliate my son again, then I'm going to reveal everything in public. Teresa looked at me with concern. Frida, that's going to be brutal. I know the consequences are going to be huge. I know. And are you willing to live with that? I took a deep breath. You need to be prepared because when you reveal that, Mr. Sterling is going to deny everything. He'll try to discredit you. He'll say you're crazy, you're jealous, that you made it all up. That's why I brought proof. Proof helps, but it's not always enough. You need witnesses. You need someone else to confirm what you're saying. Who? Teresa thought for a moment. Do you know anyone who works at Mr. Sterling's company? I shook my head. No. Then you'll have to trust that the evidence speaks for itself. I nodded. It will. I left that office with absolute clarity. I knew what I had to do. I went to a print shop. I had copies made of all the documents, photos, bank statements, transfers, everything. I prepared 3 envelopes. One for today, one for Sophia, one for Mrs. Sterling. I put them in my purse and waited. On Friday night, the day before the wedding, Toto came over for dinner at my house. He was nervous but excited. "Mom, tomorrow's the day. I can't believe it's here." I served him chicken, his favorite since he was a kid. "Are you ready?" I asked him. "I think so." "Well, I'm nervous, but happy. Very happy." And Sophia, she is too, although she's a little stressed. Her dad still wants to control everything. I felt a knot in my stomach. What did he do now? Nothing serious. He just wants to give a long speech. He says he has important things to say. There was the confirmation I needed. Mr. Sterling was going to use that microphone to humiliate my son. I knew it, and I was going to be ready. That night after Tito left, I took out the 3 envelopes, placed them on the kitchen table, and looked at them for hours, asking myself, am I doing the right thing? But then I remembered everything. I remembered the families that lost their homes. I remembered those children growing up without a father. I remembered Mrs. Sterling living a lie. I remembered Sophia seeking the love of a man incapable of giving it. And I remembered Todo, my son, my boy, the good, honest, hard-working man that monster had called an idiot. And I knew the answer. Yes, I was doing the right thing because justice is not always comfortable, but it is always necessary. I went to sleep late that night and dreamt about the next day. I dreamt of Mr. Sterling taking that microphone. I dreamt of his arrogant smile. I dreamt of his poisonous words. And I dreamt of the moment when I would stand up, snatch that microphone, and tell the truth. The truth that would destroy his world of lies. And when I woke up, I knew that dream was going to come true because the moment had arrived, the moment of justice. The wedding day dawned with a clear sky. It was Saturday. The sun shone over the city. It was warm, but there was a gentle breeze moving my window curtains. I got up early. I hadn't slept well. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same scene. Mr. Sterling at the microphone, his cruel words, to face sinking in shame. But I also saw myself standing up, taking that microphone and telling the truth. I made coffee, sat in the kitchen, and looked at the 3 envelopes I had left on the table. 1 for Tito, 1 for Sophia, 1 for Mrs. Sterling. I picked them up, put them in my purse along with the copies of all the documents, and took a deep breath. Today, everything changes, I thought. The religious ceremony would be at 5 o'clock in the afternoon at St. Augustine's Parish, the reception at 7 at the country club hall. Tad asked me to get to the church early. "Mom, I want you to be with me before I walk in. Seeing you gives me a lot of peace." I arrived at 4 o'clock. The church was decorated with white roses and ivory ribbons. It smelled of incense and fresh flowers. Everything was elegant, impeccable. Tad was in a side room with his best man. When he saw me, he smiled. "Mom." I approached. I hugged him. He smelled of new cologne. He was nervous. His hands were shaking a little. "How do you feel?" I asked him. Nervous, happy, scared, all at the same time. I took his hands. "Today, I want you to know something. No matter what happens today, I will always be on your side. Always." He looked at me strangely. "No matter what happens, Mom, are you okay?" I smiled. "Yes, son. I just wanted to tell you." I hugged him again and I felt my heart break because I knew that after today nothing would ever be the same. The ceremony was beautiful. Sophia walked in on Mr. Sterling's arm. She wore a white dress, simple but elegant. Her veil fell like a cascade of lace. She was radiant. Mr. Sterling walked with that chest inflated with pride, as if he were presenting a trophy, not his daughter. When they reached the altar, Father Michael blessed the union. Toto and Sophia exchanged vows. They looked at each other with true, genuine, pure love, and I, sitting in the 3rd row, cried. I cried out of happiness for my son, and I cried out of sadness because I knew what was coming. The reception at the country club began exactly at 7. The hall was huge. Round tables with white tablecloths, centerpieces with roses and candles, a dance floor in the center, a stage with a microphone and speakers. There were more than 200 guests, business owners, politicians, wealthy families, all dressed in expensive suits and designer dresses. And then there was us, my family, cousins, his college friends, his best man who was an electrician, his maid of honor who worked at a stationery store. You could see the difference. Two worlds in the same room. But Toto didn't seem to notice. He was happy, dancing with Sophia, laughing with his friends, hugging his aunts and uncles. I sat at a side table. I watched everything and waited. Dinner passed without incident. They served steak and potatoes, salad, mushroom soup, everything delicious. People ate, talked, laughed, and then the moment for toasts arrived. The master of ceremonies took the microphone. Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to be here celebrating the union of Tito and Sophia. At this time, the bride's father, Mr. Humphrey Sterling, has a few words to share. My heart started beating faster. Mr. Sterling stood up, walked toward the stage, took the microphone, smiled, and began to speak. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this special night. Applause. As a father, this is a bittersweet moment because today I give away my daughter, my princess, my pride. He looked at Sophia. She smiled with tears in her eyes. Then he looked at Tito and his expression changed. Sophia has always been very special, smart, beautiful, capable. She could have chosen anyone. Anyone. Pause. But she chose Toto. Nervous laughs. And well, Toto is a hardworking boy. I can't deny that. He comes from a humble but honest family. The word humble sounded like poison. Lowered his gaze. His face went pale. Sophia took his hand, but she looked uncomfortable. Mr. Sterling continued, but Sophia insisted. And well, when a woman sets her mind on something, there's no way to change it. More laughter, but this time it was cruel. So tonight, on this very special day, I want to toast my daughter to her courage, to her stubbornness. He raised his glass. And I want to say something I've already told my family in private. He looked directly at Tito. That boy is an idiot, but my daughter insisted on marrying him. The room erupted in laughter. Some guests applauded, others looked at each other uncomfortably, but I felt something inside me break. I looked at Toto. His eyes were glassy, his hands clenched into fists, his jaw tight. Sophia hugged him, whispering something in his ear. Mrs. Sterling was looking at her plate, embarrassed. And Mr. Sterling kept smiling, enjoying his moment of power. Then I stood up. My legs were shaking, but I walked toward the stage. Everyone looked at me. Mr. Sterling saw me approaching. His smile faded. Mrs. Jackson, what are you doing? I didn't answer. I climbed onto the stage and snatched the microphone from his hands. Excuse me, Mr. Sterling, but now it's my turn to speak. The hall went absolutely silent. I looked at all the guests, 200 people staring at me. I took a deep breath and spoke. Good evening. My name is Frida Jackson. I am Toto's mother. My voice trembled, but it was firm. A few minutes ago, Mr. Sterling called my son an idiot in front of all of you, in front of his own daughter on their wedding day. Silence. And I want to say something. My son is not an idiot. My son is an honest, hardworking, upright man, a man who pays his debts, who keeps his word, who respects women, who loves with his whole heart. I looked at Mr. Sterling. But you, Mr. Sterling, you don't know what it is to be a real man. His face turned red. How dare you? I dare because I have proof. I pulled the documents out of my purse and held them up. Hi. For the past few weeks, I've investigated your life, and I found things that everyone here should know. Mrs. Sterling stood up from her chair, pale. What are you saying? I looked at the guests. Humphrey Sterling has 2 families. Gasps, murmurs. He has a wife here, Mrs. Sterling, and he has another woman, Veronica Campos, with whom he has 2 children, a 7-year-old boy, a 5-year-old girl. Mrs. Sterling covered her mouth with her hands, her eyes filled with tears. Mr. Sterling tried to snatch the microphone from me. That's a lie. She's crazy. I dodged him. A lie? I have photos. I have addresses. I have bank transfer receipts. I showed the photos. People stood up to see. Mr. Sterling pays Veronica's apartment rent, pays for his children's school. He pays for everything. With what money? With money from his company, Sterling and Associates. The company employees who were there looked at each other. But that's not all, I continued. Mr. Sterling is also a thief. Shut up, Mr. Sterling yelled. 2 years ago, he won a bid to build 120 affordable homes. He received $25 million from the government. How many houses did he build? 40, and he stole the rest of the money. Shouts indignation. There are families who paid down payments, who waited years and never got their house because this man stole their money. Mr. Sterling tried to leave the stage, but people surrounded him. I demand proof, he shouted. Here it is. I handed copies of the documents to the nearest guests. They passed from hand to hand, bank statements, transfers, photos, everything. Mrs. Sterling was crying inconsolably. Sophia hugged her in shock. She looked at me, paralyzed, and I continued, the company, Sterling and Associates, is bankrupt. It owes more than $12 million. There are repossessions, lawsuits, and an investigation by the Anti-Corruption Bureau. In the coming months, Mr. Sterling will be arrested because